My trip to the Bergell discussing Alberto Giacometti. I'm reading his biography now. I'm about 30% in, so this is a sort of a milestone reached, and I am in Switzerland, so I'm going to visit the valley where he lived, hopefully get some inspiration there. And I want to use this episode to do something a little bit new. This is a little bit more diary-like and less driven towards the mission of the podcast, which is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. Of course, I can also frame this a little bit more into, like I always say, conditioning of the mind, thinking, the knowledge business, all these things are related, but I don't want to go that far because I don't want it to become like everything you do is just basically conditioning of the mind and therefore useful for running a hedge fund. Nevertheless, I think this is an important part of my personal journey, which is sometimes I just take time off, I go somewhere and I try to really dig deep into a particular subject. The first time I did this, I think was way back when I was in college. I went to Portugal for about a month or two and I dug deep into Picasso over there. And I do that every now and then, particularly now in California with all the beauty around me. So I would go to Tahoe for a few days, I would go to Monterey for a few days. And now I'm in Switzerland, so I'm going to go to the valley of the Bergell, or Bregaglia in Italian, where Alberto Giacometti grew up. And I want to talk about this a little bit in the context of how I think about doing these kinds of things, and also, of course, in the context of Giacometti himself and the biography. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's September 26, 2021. This is Crimdelco. It's a Sunday. There's no update. We're still up 13.2% for the year. The market is up 19.05. We're underperforming by 5.85%. So I am on my way now from Zurich to St. Moritz, and I'm probably going to stay in Sils Maria, which is a town between St. Moritz and Bregaglia, Stampa, which is the town in Bregaglia where Alberto Giacometti grew up. So this trip is meant to be an introspection into the life and the work of Giacometti. I'm right now reading his biography, so there's going to be a formal review of the book, of course. But I still want to use this opportunity and put this episode out because, for one, I'm in Europe going there. And second, also, I think, particularly for these large type of books, I think it makes sense to do step-by-step reviews and maybe pick some things out that stand out immediately, because also it's a big volume. This is the life of a very important artist of the 20th century, and to put this all in a 15 or 20-minute podcast would be a little bit difficult. So let's give some geography first. The Valley of Bregaglia, or the Bergell in German, is a valley which goes from the sort of the plateau of St. Moritz down into a valley, and I don't know the exact names, but if you kind of look into the map of Europe, we're talking the south of Switzerland, sort of the southeast of Switzerland. So you're going east and then through the Alps towards Italy, and you're crossing the Alps. So you're on the other side of the Alps already, but there's still alpine nature there, and part of the attraction of what's called the Engadine, which is the south side of the Alps, is also, of course, the weather. It's still, of course, alpine, cold and all that, but it's on the south side, so you have a little bit already the smell and the flair of the south of Italy and the Mediterranean. So this mix of alpine Mediterranean type climate makes it very, very appealing, very similar to the Tyrol in Italy, on the south side of Italy. So let's talk about this particular man. Alberto Giacometti grows up in Stampa, in the Bregaglia again, and he is, in my opinion, definitely the most important sculptor of the 20th century. I am like I said, about 30% into his biography. So what happened? Let me just give a brief overview. He grows up in Stampa. He's the son of a relatively successful artist, I would say local artist, his father, and he himself gets inspired. I wouldn't say necessarily according to the biography. Actually, he wasn't too much inspired by his father. I think Giacometti is what I would call a genuine artist. He is somebody who just cannot do other than do art. He's that type of person. He would be a 0 to 1 type person in Peter Thiel's vocabulary. So there's nothing else he can do. he is only scratching his own itches here. And the fact that he becomes an artist, the fact that he becomes a surrealist, which is where we are right now, and I am sure he's going to evolve from there. So he's in his late 20s, early 30s. And the fact that he becomes all these things is really a very beautiful explanation of what an innovation stack means in the world of art. And just to be clear, of course, the word innovation stack never comes up here. This is me now contexting his biography with the knowledge I have today. And I think that is a beautiful thing to do, because I think we should be able to use new knowledge and apply it to, let's say, situations like Alberto Giacometti's life. This should be allowed. This is not me throwing around words or anything like that. This is actually, I would say, new knowledge. And what do I mean with innovation stack? So Giacometti is, like I said, a very genuine person. He's a very unique type of monopolistic type artist, because he doesn't want to be following anybody else's footsteps. And of course, that is very difficult to do for a young artist, because no matter what, you're embedded into a system, you're embedded into a culture, you're also judged against other people. So all these things matter, and you can't just isolate yourself, particularly in the beginning. You have to make a living, you have to please people, you have to be able to access knowledge from other people, you have to be able to gain experience from other people. At the same time, you can't copy other people. You don't want to be a Me Too artist. And I think this is a very fine line that people have to do in many areas: business, art, sports. How do I develop my own craft? How do I develop my own me? How am I a 0 to 1 person? And at the same time, of course, how do I learn from other people? There is knowledge out there. There is knowledge in everything, every aspect of life that matters. Sports, arts, business, science, literature, you name it. There is knowledge that we have today. Take fighting, for example. There's people, they say, oh, well, the good old samurai, they were so powerful. A samurai would have no chance against a professional, advanced MMA fighter today. Let's put the swords aside, which is talking about mano a mano fighting. And that's because we have knowledge. It's not because we are better people. We have knowledge in fighting, we have knowledge in nutrition, we have knowledge in conditioning, and the same thing applies to business and the arts. So the knowledge that we have today in terms of arts, I think, is very much relevant. And we can borrow from the business literature, we can borrow from 0 to 1, we can borrow from the innovation stack. Maybe, and certainly we can borrow from the beginning of Infinity, David Deutsch, because I think there's also a very Popperian moment in the biography where there is a line, and I will put it on in the remarks under the episode where that is exactly. So there's a line where it says that Giacometti, so sort of in his mid-20s, in his atelier in Paris, realizes that he can get better by relentless exercising and try and error type working. He realizes that makes him better. And this is, of course, this is exactly what we believe in at Orange Capital Partners, that no matter who you are and no matter what kind of business you're in, you have to be able to learn from iteration. If you're not good at that, no matter how good the starting point is, you're not going to succeed. This applies to athletes, this applies to science, everything. Now, having said that, Giacometti is a beautiful example of a person that I think comes endowed with a lot of good details, or a lot of good things that he already has. So he is, like I said, he's a genuine artist. He's a person that likes, as a child, to walk around the valley of Bergell, around Stampa, and this is part of the reason why I'm going there, to take walks and hikes around that area, to just get a feel for the energy that he must have sucked up when he was a child growing up there in the early 20th century. So there is a lot of endowment already there, but the actual success that makes Giacometti who he is today, one of the most important, if not the most important, sculpturists and artists of the 20th century, is this ability to iterate, to generate knowledge, to use David Deutsch or even Brad Hall. I'm not sure who actually put that out and inspired me with that comment, because you see, I think actually it's David Deutsch in the beginning of Infinity. You see, art and beauty are like technology and everything else. It evolves, it gets better, you solve problems and you get better solutions for better problems, and it's a continuous quest for beauty, for truth. It's fallibilism because we are on the quest for truth. We're not claiming that we have the truth. We're not convinced that whatever we do that's it and all of that stuff. But we have this innate ability to continue to work and get better and better. And this is really what strikes me as most important in Giacometti's world. I think that I would take that as the most important. Why is Giacometti who he is? He is endowed with a 0 to 1 personality, which is I'm already unique. I'm very special. I'm a bit of a renegade, if you want, and I have the ability to iterate. I am flexible enough. I'm a fluid person. I can fail. I can put myself back up, and I can create things. And that is really what makes me strong. Now, let's talk a little bit about this innate ability. What do I mean with that? And I think, again, I'm just borrowing from the biography here. I haven't met the person, but what comes across to me is that Giacometti was also sort of in the score takes care of itself type of mood, which is the actual art is not what matters. It's the pursuit, and I'm trying to express my inner emotions and thinkings and all of that stuff. I'm trying to express it through my art, and it's gonna come out. I have to keep working on it. I am not satisfied with it. There's one scene in the book where he sells his first sculpture to an important collector, and he's almost disappointed. Well, this is it? I've already convinced you? Like, this is nothing. I am absolutely not happy with my art yet, and you're already buying it. So it's a beautiful example. This would be kind of like saying, well, you are what? You're buying my product already? I'm not even there yet. So that kind of thing. And of course, that is also a little bit of a morbid, well, it could be also a morbid view or a nihilist view. And this is another interesting subject of my trip right now. I'm actually going to stay the night in Sils Maria, which is where Nietzsche stayed a lot and wrote, I think, Zarathustra. And where I think the important quotes, God is dead, and those sort of things came out. And if you stare too long into the abyss can stare back to you. So what is Nietzsche is, I would say, certainly in the nihilist camp, because God is gone. What do we have? We have nothing. So it's very important when you're an artist like Giacometti, and you're continuously dissatisfied with your work, and you're a fallibilist in the sense that you're looking for solutions to better problems, and you always assume that your better solutions are still not good enough, and that you have to keep working. There's a very fine line where you can also be a nihilist, and you can say, well, what is this? What's the purpose of this? What am I, a rat race? Is this a rat race? Am I just a hamster turning the wheel? So there's a lot of subtlety here, and I think as a human, we have to be incredibly careful not to cross that line from fallibilism to nihilism. But how do we cross that line? Actually, that would be a good question to ask to David Deutsch and Brad Hall. What prevents us from crossing the line from fallibilism to nihilism? Do we have the strength? Do we have this energy and the purpose to keep working on a problem that we know we're not going to find a final solution? And this goes back to, I mean, we're not going to find the truth. We're not going to find the ultimate beauty. So what do we have? Let's talk about this a little bit. What do we have? What does Giacometti have? Well, he has a drive for sexuality. He has a drive for his vain. He wants to succeed. He has money problems. That helps. And he has, I think, an urge to impress his peers. So those are the kinds of things. And this puts me back to my conclusion a few episodes ago, that it's about free will and things like that, where I spoke. But it doesn't really matter if we have free will or don't have free will or any of that stuff. I think what matters in the end, in my book, is that we have something to compete against. We have something to measure ourselves against. Nature, the reality, is the oracle that we can consult all the time to ask for opinions about what we do. Nature throws it back at us, or reality, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you did a good job. No, this wasn't good enough. You got to do better here. So this pursuit is, I think, in itself a purpose that drives people like Giacometti, that drives people like Elon Musk, that drives people like me. And I think we have to stay religiously diligent about this. We can never allow ourselves to get off that path to some sort of other pursuit, let's say the pursuit of truth, and just trying to be frustrated that, or running the risk of being frustrated that we will never reach that truth thing. That is not okay. I think we need to keep humble. We need to be humble enough just to tell ourselves the following: look, nature sets itself up in a probably random way, at least random from my perspective, from a subjective random way. Maybe objectively it's not random, but subjectively it's random. So nature sets itself up, and I am tested against that nature all the time. And this is what is really the fun. This is the, like David Deutsch says, solving problems is what makes you happy. It's solving that puzzle. It's playing that game, me against nature. Nature is, it's the trees, the ocean, the climate, it's the people, it's the kind of sports games that we're inventing, it's the art game we're inventing, it's all these things. And I'm choosing my sandbox, and then I play in this. And Giacometti chose the sandbox of artistic Paris in the early 20th century. My sandbox is Silicon Valley in the early 21st century. Doesn't matter what the sandbox is. It's about playing the game, and it's about solving problems. It's not about winning the game. This is very important. Another very important little subtle thing here. It's not about winning the game. The score takes care of itself. This is my strong belief. This is Giacometti's strong belief. This is this famous coach who wrote that book. He was a 49ers coach, and again, maybe his name was Welsh. I'll put it in the notes. The book, very highly recommended. The score takes care of itself. It's about a 49ers coach who was coaching Joe Montana and had a huge success streak with the 49ers. The score takes care of itself. What is the fundamental thesis in that book is that you take care of all the details, you work towards the larger mission, and you make sure everybody is set up for success, and then the score will take care of itself. This is what applies to Giacometti as an individual as much as a coach who coaches a team. It is unbelievably important to be clear about what is the game you're playing. And the game you're playing as a coach is very simple. It's a football game. Thomas Tuchel is the coach of Chelsea, very similar type coach. He sets up his people for success. Chelsea has success, but it's a game of soccer, so it's relatively easy to define what the purpose is and the metrics. When it comes to Giacometti, it's a little bit harder. So what does he do? He falls into let's say let's not use the word trap, but he falls into this the temptation that artists often have, which is I wanna align myself with a certain doctrine, and let me see how good I can do within that particular doctrine and solve the problem. So in the case of Giacometti, it was first Cubism and then Surrealism, which were both kind of thrown at him from this. So this was the environment defining itself around him, and he's solving problems relative to the environment. Particularly Surrealism, he became incredibly enamored with that, André Breton and people like that. Why? Because it spoke to him. He had solutions for the problems that were being posed. It was the zeitgeist in Paris, which was the cultural center of the world. There's a lot of reasons why that should have been the case. Maybe if I allow myself a small digression here. So if we just look at art history of the early 20th century, I think there is two important events that influenced Giacometti. One is the painting Les Demoiselles d'Avignon by Pablo Picasso, painted in 1907, first shown in 1916, and certainly Giacometti must have been influenced by that painting. Why is that painting so crucial? Because it shows a couple of things. It shows vulgarity. It shows that art doesn't have to be always sort of the beautiful representation of how we think or what the world should be. It is art the way it is the world the way it is, and it's dirty and it's nasty, and it looks at the world from different perspectives, and there's masks in there, and women and naked women and prostitution and all the things which are dirty. And I think that dirtiness comes across in Giacometti's work also. There's a lot of sexuality, there's a lot of violence in Giacometti's world, and I think that violence strikes you in a very gentle way, and this is the beauty of Giacometti. But now I'm going ahead of myself. I think what attracts me about Giacometti is, and now I have to be careful, it's a sexuality which is violent and dirty, but it's still in the realm of gentleness and love. So this tension, which I think humans feel when they're in the process of sexuality, intercourse, or on those sort of things, this is what Giacometti is able to express, and this is what attracts people to his work. This is what attracts me to his work. But now I'm jumping out of myself. This is almost the conclusion of Giacometti, and I don't know. By the way, again, he's in his early 30s now. We're in sort of 1930, and this is still, there's a lot to come in terms of what he's doing and how his life and all of that stuff. So let's go back to the second big influence on him. So Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, number one. Number two is Surrealism. André Breton is one of the founders, and then the circle around him. What is Surrealism? In a sense, Surrealism is what people today would call the people that meditate and try to get the I out of their way. So Surrealists are, in my view, the early yogis. They are just saying, look, there's an I, there's a stream of thoughts that comes in my way. I want to peel that off and get my own inner workings. I want to go to the source code and see what comes out. This is what Surrealism is, and they call it automatic painting, for example, which is another word for I don't want to use my brain. I don't want to use the frontal cortex. I don't want to use the elephant that's riding I don't want to be the rider of the elephant. I want to see what the elephant has to say. This is the way I interpret it. So those two events are huge influences of Giacometti in the early days, and they come to fruition in this in sculptures like the La Femme qui Regarde, the Cage, which are expressions of sexuality and beauty and violence, but in a gentle way.